Welcome. I am Elizabeth Foster Nolan, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, a nonpartisan organization that encourages civic participation and empowers voters in Massachusetts. This recording is part of our Run for Office series, designed to encourage civic participation by informing the public about the right to run for office and providing information on the process. We envision this series will be useful to a wide audience, not only people considering a run for office, but also members of the public learning about campaign finance laws and civics, election officials, teachers and their students, and our local leagues who champion civics education. The right to run for office is enshrined in the Massachusetts general laws. Every registered voter in Massachusetts has the right to run. Whether you are ready to run, considering and just exploring the idea, working on a campaign, or interested in teaching or learning more about the process, we encourage you to watch our Run for Office series. You can find the recordings on our website, www.lwvma.org. Today, we'll hear from Jason Tate, Director of Communications and Public Education for the Massachusetts Office of Campaign and Political Finance. He'll walk us through the rules for accepting campaign donations, also the tools for reporting receipts and expenditures, and the missteps candidates should avoid. Members of the public and local election officials serve as important watchdogs for campaign finance. It is important for every member of the public to know the rules and report any issues. Thank you for your interest in running for office. Our democracy functions because people like you are willing to learn more about this exciting process.
Hi, I'm Jason Tate, the Education Director at the State Office of Campaign and Political Finance. We're a very small state agency on Beacon Hill. We're at 1 Ashburton Place. It's a 22-story building. We're on floor 4, and we spend our days and our hours here at 1 Ashburton Place concerned about disclosure. That is the key word here at OCPF, disclosure. There are about 2,500 different political committees organized in the state of Massachusetts who file reports with us, about 40,000 campaign finance reports a year. In addition to that, there are probably thousands of candidates. We don't know the complete number, but probably thousands of candidates on the local level who follow our rules and file their campaign finance reports with their local election officials, usually the city or town clerk. On the local level, you're talking about candidates like select board and school committee, city council in cities of fewer than 65,000 people. On the state level, we have all mayors filing with us, House, Senate, statewide candidates, county candidates. We have about 250 political action committees. And all of these different political committees and candidates are raising and spending money. And the reason why we exist is to help those political committees to disclose that activity, the money raised, the money spent. There are things called in-kind contributions. We want to make sure the public sees any in-kind contributions. All of this information needs to be put into a campaign finance report for public disclosure. So today, in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to address candidates who are running on the local level, but also the state level. There are different reporting systems with much different rules depending on which office you're running for. So today I just want to give you a general tour of our website, because everything I'm going to talk about here today is available somewhere on the OCPF website. So I want to take you there to complete my introduction to OCPF to show you, if you're running for office, how do you run for office? There are things that steps you'll need to take with your local election officials and nomination papers. That's not the business of OCPF. OCPF, like I said, is concerned about campaign finance. So I want to show you, if you're a candidate, you're thinking about running for office, what should be your first steps? And then we're going to go into what we call the top 10 rules. The top 10 rules do apply to everyone. So there's sort of this campaign finance world. There are some rules that just apply to everyone. Rules that have gone back to the early 1970s that have changed very little over the past 50 years. I'm going to take you now to our website. It's ocpf.us. And I am going to show you the most important button that you can push if you're thinking about running for office in Massachusetts. And there are lots of hyperlinks through here. I would say that your most important link is right here where it says Getting Started. If I want to start to run for office and I click the Getting Started button, you're going to see a list of all sorts of different types. I've mentioned a lot of these, like statewide and House and Senate county. If I'm running for local office, I'm going to want to find that, and here it is. I'm going to click here, and there are steps on how to get going. I'm going to briefly go through the steps for local municipal filers. You're talking about select board and school committee. Those are the folks I'm talking about here. The number one rule to start off, step one, is to organize. Everybody organizes with their local election official by filing what we call the M101 form. I'm going to click that now just so you can get your eyes on that real quick. It's a one-page form where you put in the easy candidate information here, and then you choose a chairperson, which is often the candidate, and then a treasurer. The treasurer can be anyone except for an appointed public employee. Appointed public employees are like your school teachers, firefighters, police officers. The treasurer can be anyone, even a family member. Oftentimes they are family members. They might last a campaign or two and then they quit on you, but you can ask a close family member or someone to be treasurer for your campaign. But that's all it takes, two people, usually the candidate, and then someone here is treasurer, and then you're an official political committee. You would sign it down here at the bottom. We often get the question, I'm going to run for local office, and I'm just going to spend my own money. I don't need a political committee. We always recommend a political committee, but if you're just going to be a candidate only, I like to call them lone wolves. If you're just going to be a lone wolf, you still file this form, only you click this box, candidate without committee. That box tells the public, okay, this person's running, but they're not going to have a committee. So you would leave these boxes blank for chair and treasurer and just sign the candidate signature at the bottom. That's how you begin to organize on the local level. If you're running for office and you file with the state, which are statewide candidates, House and Senate, Governor's Council, county, mayoral, city council, these all look the same. So you can click any of these, but I'm just going to click mayoral in this case. You organize electronically with our office. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but I am going to click here so you can see what it looks like. If you've ever done taxes using TurboTax, this is a similar system. You just fill in information and click next. Fill in information and click next. I've done this a few times. It takes about 10 minutes. At the end of the 10-minute process, you submit your organizational paper, and OCPF will review it, and your name becomes public. On the front page of our website at ocpf.us, if I go to filers and then I go to recently organized, there's a live listing of candidates and committees who have gone through that online process and have been established as political committees here. So you can see them. There was one today. Today's the 15th of November, and they go back. There's a list there, a live listing. So getting back to the Getting Started page, if I were to go back to the local offices, what's step 2? Bring a completed 101 form to your local election official. So you fill out the 101 organizational form, you bring it to your elected official, and then you open up your bank account. You only need to open up a bank account if you actually accept money. To open up the bank account, most banks require an EIN. That's not a rule from OCPF, but banks and the IRS, they require an EIN from the IRS. You can get that electronically online. I just click the I here in the corner, how to set up your bank account. That's for local filers. For filers with OCPF, if we go to that same step, you will see that there's an extra step for you. And I consider this the hardest part of the whole process for OCPF filers. And that's taking this paper form, we call this depository bank form, and asking a bank to become the depository bank for your campaign. They will have to file reports on your behalf by using the D103 form, which is taking a little while here to load, but I just wanted you to be able to take a look at it before we move on. This D103 form is signed by the bank. You submit it to OCPF, and then you're really in business. You've organized and you've opened a bank account, and now you can begin to raise and spend money. That's a general rule for all committees, whether you're filing with us or you're filing locally. Treasurers who file with our office. So if you're a candidate, you have a treasurer, they do need to take online filing. That's what step 3 is here, treasurer training. And then you begin to raise and spend money if you're running for office and filing with us by using our online filing system. We call it Reporter. Money that you raise, you'd stick in the bank, and then after making a bank deposit, you'd file what we call a deposit report. And that's the primary filing responsibility for candidates who file with OCPF. You raise money, you deposit the funds in the bank, and then you file a deposit report. I don't mention expenditures because on our level, you don't file expenditures. The bank will do that on your behalf because you only spend money using your committee debit card and your committee checking account. And so the bank sees the activity, reports it to us on a monthly schedule, and the public disclosure requirement is accomplished. On the local level, there's more work for you. If we go down to local offices, you'll see it says in step 4, prepare and file your reports with the local election official. You can use our software. You can't e-file. You can use our software to type the information in, print it, sign it, hand it into the clerk. But for the most part, candidates like to use just the paper form because they might have a handful of contributions, a handful of expenditures, and it's sometimes easier for them just to fill that in. I'm going to take a quick look at that campaign finance form now. So I'm going back to the home page, ocpf.us, by clicking the OCPF icon here in the corner. There are many ways to find this form. I like to go down here to where it says clerk support because all the local information that you need is right here in these 8 boxes in general. The M102 form is right here. This M102 form is a form that you'll file with your local clerk before elections, preliminary or general, and then if you're in a town, after the election. In a city, you only file before the preliminary and before the general election, and then at year end. And this form accomplishes the disclosure requirement that I spoke about earlier. You can see the various schedules, receipts, these are contributions, they're all listed here, it's pretty simple. Expenditures are a few schedules down here, expenditures, and then it goes on listing in-kind contributions and liabilities. So in summary, as far as getting started goes, the number 1 step is to get organized. And then if you're with OCPF, you must open a bank account to deposit your contributions. On the local level, you open a bank account if you're receiving contributions, and then you disclose your activity either to the state or on the local level. And remember, please, that all the information that you'll need is here on this website. I will direct your attention to an educational resource that I think is very useful. I post most of the information here on the front page of the website. I like to keep this checklists posting somewhere on the front page of the website. So if you're running your campaign, I would recommend clicking the checklists box and choosing the type of campaign that you're running. Municipal candidates who file with local election officials, that may be most of you, the select board, school committee. If I click there, there's a checklist. It's very short, and it's a summary of our campaign finance rules. Almost everything I've already talked about. There's that 101 that we spoke about, registering for Reporter 7, getting that EIN from the IRS. And then we'll get into limits and expenditures information later. So that's an introduction to OCPF and how to get started when you decide to run for office. our office, and I don't know if you can see this here, but our office created a top 10 list. This is a flyer that we send to all city and town clerks each year. And we hope they take this flyer and they hand it to you when you say, I'm thinking about running for office. It has a code here, a QR code, where you can scan that with your phone and it takes you to that getting started page. So hopefully your clerks give this to you. I want to discuss the top 10 rules on the back of this flyer that apply to everyone, whether you're running for governor or you're running for library board of trustees. These are the rules. The number one rule is to organize. We've already talked about that. When you do begin to collect money, I would say one of the top rules would be to collect the name and address of every donor. There can be no anonymous contributions. So think about the cash that you may raise. You can receive up to $50 in cash from an individual in a year. You need to get the name and address of those individuals. Name and address, name and address. That's the number one rule when collecting money, because there can be no anonymous contributions. You need to account for every dollar that you spend and collect for your campaign. All of your contributions and expenditures are disclosed on the campaign finance forms, whether you're filing with us or with the state. And contributors of $200 or more, you would report their occupation and employer to OCPF. If I were to go to our website and I want to look at some of this disclosure information that I'm talking about, our most popular link is right here where it says search contributions. Like I said, this is the most important one for you right now, but search contributions is where your journalists go, your state parties, candidates who are running for office. And if I were to go over here and type in employer, I'll just type in Harvard. See if any donors are from Harvard University, and you will see that Harvard and professor show up right there at the top. That's because the campaign finance law requires contributors who give $200 or more in the aggregate for the year that their occupation and employer are disclosed to the public. When it comes to contributions, there are some prohibitions. I'd say the top prohibition would be the ban on corporate contributions, business contributions to your campaign. We're talking about corporations, LLCs, LLPs, partnerships. Just about any business organization is prohibited from contributing to your campaign, either with money, monetarily, or in kind. Our office, for the most part, if we see an issue with this, a lot of times it's with in-kind contributions. Your friend owns a restaurant in town, and you're going to have your big fundraiser, and you have the whole thing planned out. You have your facility, everything, but what do you do about food? Your friend volunteers, we'll donate all the food from our restaurant to your campaign. You'd have to say, thank you for the offer, but you're an LLC, so we must pay for your goods and services. So that's a real key in the campaign finance law, is to pay for all the goods and services that you receive from businesses. In our top 10, I'm already on number 6, provide a clear statement of the expenditure purpose. So in the campaign finance law, your campaign can make expenditures to enhance your political future so long as it's not primarily personal. So obviously lawn signs, you can boost Facebook posts to get elected. The folks who stand out in the cold to hold your signs in the spring or in the fall, if they want to show up, if you want them to show up the next weekend, you probably need to buy them coffee and donuts. So you can take that campaign debit card to Dunkin' Donuts. You can buy coffee and donuts. The key here is that you show the public that you're making these expenditures for a political purpose. So in our example of coffee and donuts for the sign holding volunteers, the purpose of the expenditure, and there's a space in the form for the purpose, is to coffee and donuts for sign holding volunteers. Just always remember the 4. If you just put coffee and donuts, you may get a complaint filed against you. But if you say coffee and donuts for sign holding volunteers, then the public and OCPF will see that it's for a political purpose and not primarily personal. There are some ground rules at OCPF that we're getting into now, number 7 on our list. involves public employees. So appointed and compensated public employees, you're talking about firefighters, police officers, school teachers, they are prohibited from soliciting or receiving campaign contributions for any political purpose for your campaign. So what does this really mean? That means when you begin to run for office, your cousin who works at UMass, maybe he's a professor there, goes on Facebook and says, "Hey, my cousin Susan is running for city council. Her big fundraiser is Friday night. I hope to see you all there." Because your cousin's a public employee, he cannot solicit or receive campaign contributions. So that posting on Facebook would be prohibited by law. It's good to know information that when you're running your campaign, your friends, family, neighbors who are public employees and who are supporting you, if you could let them know that they cannot solicit or receive on your behalf, that would be very helpful. Public buildings, buildings used for governmental purposes. There's a portion of the statute that prohibits soliciting or receiving campaign contributions in buildings used for governmental purposes. These are your libraries, senior centers, a UMass building, where the student center is. There can't be any fundraising going on there, soliciting or receiving. How might you trip up on it as a candidate? It's when you send your invitations. The courts have determined that an invitation sent into a government building, either by snail mail, that was their determination, but emails come on as well since then, snail mail or by email, that's a prohibited solicitation within a government building. So when you send out those invitations, please send them to residential addresses, personal email accounts. You can even send it to, address it to an individual at a business. The business can't give, but an individual at the business can give. Please don't send your invitations to government email addresses or into government buildings. Finally, please file your reports by the deadline. Our office does have the statutory authority to fine individuals who file their campaign finance reports late. Your reports will be due 8 days prior to an election if you file locally, 8 days prior to a preliminary or a general election, and then in towns, 30 days afterward. In cities, a year-end report. In towns, a year-end report as well. So in towns, in an election year, you may have to file 4 reports. In cities, up to 3. So if those forms are not filed on time, then fines of $25 a day can be assessed. On the state level, there's no set filing schedule like that. You file deposit reports as you make deposits at the bank, but the fines can still be in effect if you're making deposits and you don't file deposit reports. We do have the statutory authority to assess fines of $25 a day, up to $5,000 for late filed reports. So that in a nutshell is the top 10 from OCPF. I think with the 20 minutes that I have here today, that if you can walk away with anything, it's that the campaign finance law can feel complicated at times. In fact, if you get hired here at OCPF, it takes several months before we finally say, all right, you're ready to go. You can begin to answer questions about the campaign finance law. It takes some time, but we're here to help you through this process. So just watching this video, you've begun the educational process. I encourage you to take classes from us. There on our website, you can register for classes that are longer than this. They last about an hour, and we go deep into the campaign finance law. But you still won't know anything. So it's our job to help you through this process. If you have any questions, email us at ocpf@mass.gov, or you can call our office at 617-979-8300. And that's what we do most of the day. In fact, during this talk, I've heard the phone ringing in the cubicles next to me. That's because people are asking questions. You won't know everything. If you don't know everything and it's not on that checklist that I showed you, feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll answer those for you. Thank you very much for listening and learning about the campaign finance law. Good luck on your campaigns.
We hope you enjoyed today's program and found it informative. Our thanks to Jason Tate for sharing his time with us today, and to all of you for watching. We appreciate that you are willing to learn more about how democracy functions. We encourage you to view the other recordings in our Run for Office series. You can find the recordings and learn more about the work of the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts at www.lwvma.org. Remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Your vote is your voice. Thank you for watching.